The New York Mets were having an excellent weekend until they weren't, and it was an all too familiar ending for them in Atlanta. Welcome back in another edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast. Jack McKessie, Chris Schubert with you, recapping the Atlanta series, getting you ready for the clash for the NL East. The Mets 7 games back of the Philadelphia Phillies. Welcome them in for 3 games tonight. We'll get you ready for that. Jack's going to probably rant about Tyrone Taylor not being in center field. I'm going to rant about Gregory Soto's one chance to prove that he's a high leverage reliever going up in flames. A lot to discuss here. Jack, how are you, my friend?
Chris, I'm good, and I just want to shout you out real quick because it is your birthday on the day that we are recording this, which makes us 2 for 2 on recording a podcast on the day of one of our birthdays. So happy birthday to you, sir.
Yeah, it's weird that that's worked out that way because we record like specific days of the week, and yeah, this is the second time we've gotten a chance to record on a birthday. So thank you. I appreciate that.
The good news is the Mets delivered a series win over the Braves in Truist Park for you. The bad news is they did not deliver a sweep.
And they are not delivering Brandon Sproat on the mound tonight for the Mets in the first game of this series. I mean, it started off so well. Just in general, this weekend was a roller coaster. Coming out of Washington, you're feeling just down in the dumps about the team. And then Nolan McLean's like, wait a minute, guys, I got you. I'll remind you how good this team can be. And he was absolutely excellent. Better than his debut, even though he gave up a couple of runs. Goes 7 innings. Slips on the first pitch and hits Jurickson Profar, and you're just thinking, oh no, here we go again in Atlanta. It's just going to be a complete dumpster fire. And he just rallied from that moment, and curveball, sweeper just continued to be elite pitches for him. I got Olsen looking foolish a couple of times with some pitches for strikeouts. The at-bat that he had to Acuna after he served up the home run to him on the previous at-bat, just blowing 97 by him up and in and making Acuna look silly was great. It just, Jack, it's different when he is on the mound. Nobody else in this rotation has the stuff profile that he does. Nobody in this rotation, I think, and this is not an attack, but just nobody has the poise that he has. I mean, he is just, to him, it's like going to war every single inning, and he just has a different mentality, and every at-bat feels like a battle that he wants to win, and you can just see it and sense it and feel it when he is starting, and it's taken 2 starts, but, I mean, you're looking at, I think, a future ace of this staff. He's been excellent so far.
I 100% agree. Like, I texted you, and I had said before in this podcast, when Nolan McLean comes up, we do not need an ace-level starter. We just need someone who is a 4 or 5 potential starter that is better than what we are getting from Frankie Montas and, at the time, Clay Holmes or Tyler McGill, whoever you want to throw out there. And he has looked more like a playoff starter than he has a 4 or 5 starter in this rotation so far. It's been 2 starts, so I don't want to go crazy yet. But everything we've seen from him as far as repertoire and how it's playing at the major league level, as far as poise, you mentioned it. They mentioned it on the broadcast again in the series finale. Hitting Profar and being able to bounce back from that. There are several pitchers in this rotation, let alone the staff, that would not have been able to bounce back the way that he was from the kind of shaky start. And then to have the length, to have the results, just 2 earned runs against this Braves lineup, which, as much as the team has struggled this year, they have some scary hitters in Matt Olson, Marcell Ozuna, Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies. Michael Harris has turned things around in the second half. And he was able to shut down all of those guys. And like you said, made Acuna look silly, made Matt Olson look silly. He's legit. He's a legit future star for this team.
You want to have some fun with some small sample sizes? We're using a new recording software, so I have some new technology available to me. And so
all right.
I'll share the screen. I'll throw it up there. There is the StatCast page for Nolan McLean, and fun with numbers, fun with small sample sizes. Just excellent. Excellent at generating 70% ground ball rate through his first 2 starts, 3.8% barrel rates, not getting hit that hard, strikeout rate over 30%. Again, 2-game sample size, so be careful with this, but he has just delivered in every single capacity for this team so far, and showing off all of the pitches. He's been great. He's been absolutely excellent.
And he totally did me dirty because my prediction was I was a little bit scared about the walks coming into this game. The Braves are a little bit more disciplined at the plate usually. 0 walks given up by Nolan McLean in this second start.
Which is probably the most important thing coming out of the start, right? Because the 4 walks were the one blemish on his debut, and there was a concern that was going to carry over. And it definitely feels like that was first start nerves, adrenaline, just, it's a big moment. You're making your MLB debut. very shortly after you were drafted, and you were a two-way player that was a reliever in college. You've become a starter, and this is really, his first full year professionally as a starting pitcher, and he's pitching in the big leagues, so
Yeah.
it can be a lot. And he settled down in an environment that has been a house of horrors for the New York Mets. Truist Park, Atlanta, has been just nightmare fuel on the regular basis. Nolan McLean pitched as if he was going to say to everybody involved, this is not going to be that place anymore, and I'm going to make sure of it. It was a dominating performance, and it was a dominating performance from the offense, backing him up in such a big way, and that certainly helped him have some success on the mound. The bats showed up. First two games of the series, really, they showed up in a big way.
Yeah, I just wanted to say quickly before we transition to how good the offense was, Chris, I know you said this first Nolan McLean start against Seattle, you were listening mostly and weren't able to watch. How fun is it to watch that curveball and some of the breaking stuff that Nolan McLean throws?
The back foot curveball that he threw to Matt Olson that had Olson just swing out of his shoes was amazing. And the 97 in, the sixth or seventh inning to Acuna, dialing it up late, not afraid to go after the guy that got him for the home run earlier in the game and just blew 97 by him and got Acuna to basically half swing. Yeah, it much different seeing those types of pitches than listening to Howie, and Howie does a great job, but just different to see those pitches than it is to hear them. But yeah, he's special. He's special.
It made me scoff out loud several times. Like I would go, oh my gosh, that is a dirty pitch.
And the fun part is, there are some people that will tell you that Jonah Tong is a better prospect, that Jonah Tong is a better pitcher, that Brendan Sproat is just as good, that it could be any of these guys that is the breakout. And Nolan McLean, he's the one doing it right now. And really set the tone for this series to say, I know we had a bad couple days in Washington. I know overall it's been a bad run for this team right now, but I'm going to do my part. And I loved what he said after the game of, he was asked about being the first guy to go 6+ innings, not named David Peterson. And he was like, I was just trying to be better than my last start. And the next time out, I'm going to be trying to be better than this start. And there's just composure and poise for somebody in this market at 24 years old that not everybody carries. And he carries it, and it's special. It is special. It's a 2-game sample size, yes, but so far just checking every box that we thought he could check, and he's doing it right away.
And to do this against the team that he grew up rooting for had to be super special for him, too. Like, just absolute dominance against the Braves. Guy from North Carolina, grew up rooting for them, having a second start in Atlanta, his first start on the road, and it just performed like he did is incredible. And I'll transition back like you were trying to do earlier, Chris. The offense definitely helped make things a little bit easier for him and not quite as stressful in this game.
You did what you're supposed to do. You're facing a pitcher who has a 5 ERA. You get to him, you knock him out of the game, and you get to a bullpen, and they bring in Eric Fetty, and he's got a 5 ERA or above, and you get after him as well. That's what you're supposed to do. And what I love the most about this game was it was everybody. Every single starter had a hit. It was a career night for Brett Beatty with the 4 for 4. The 4 hits, a career high 4 for 6. It was Taylor with a multi-hit game in the lineup. It was Mullins having a big day, including smoking that triple to the right field brick wall. It was Hayden Senger with 3 RBIs. The Mets scored 12 runs. 6 of those runs came from Taylor, Mullins, and Senger, 7, 8, and 9 in the lineup. You got production up and down this group, and you didn't have Francisco Alvarez. Brendan Nimmo was still dealing with the neck. Tyrone Taylor hadn't been hitting all that well, so you're kind of worried about things. Mets had a great day. Juan Soto added 4 RBIs. It was just, name a player. They had a good moment and a good couple of at-bats in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fun to watch when the offense is on like this. As much as I had been maligning the bottom third of this order with Taylor, Mullins, and Sanger, to see them have the performances that they did. Hayden Sanger, by the way, didn't have his first career RBI, and he had multiple starts before that Washington series, got a sac fly in that game, and then was like, let me just add on 3 more against the Atlanta Braves in Atlanta. And so having that kind of performance from the offense to pair with the amazing day that Nolan McLean had, I mean, like the vibe switch from the last 2 games of the Washington series into the first game of this Atlanta series were like complete opposite sides of the spectrum.
It wasn't all good news for the New York Mets because the 2 bullpen arms that were brought in made this a lot closer than it needed to be. Reed Garrett gives up 2 runs in his inning of work. We now know, as recording this podcast, he's been placed on the 15-day injured list with some elbow inflammation, dealing with an elbow injury. And in his place, it is Jose Castillo being brought back up to join the Mets bullpen. So no, not Jonah Tong, not Brandon Sproat joining the Mets bullpen out there. They're going with one of their minor league reliever options. And he hasn't been very good for a while now. It's been a struggle for him. Maybe now we're starting to understand why. A heavy workload for most of the first half of the season. A heavy workload last year for this team. He was a bright spot, was the closer at one point when Edwin Diaz was dealing with the yips that he was having. And just feels like he ran out of gas a little bit, right? And it feels like he's just dealing with all of that fatigue catching up to him. And then Ryan Helsley, just in a about as low leverage of a spot as you can get, made it to where the Mets had to get Edwin Diaz up and kind of loosening in the bullpen, and you worried about how that was going to impact the weekend. And Garrett's injury and Helsley's performance in this game, I think, directly impacted the way Carlos Mendoza managed this game on Sunday, and you could connect the dots and say maybe that's why the Mets lost on Sunday, because of the way Mendoza had to use his bullpen, because he doesn't trust Helsley and Garrett was banged up.
Yeah, exactly. It was a brutal turn, I think, to see Helsley not be able to have any kind of bounce back from some of his previous outings and higher leverage situations. I know the Mets have been trying to, or it seems that the Mets have been trying to work him back with some of these lower leverage opportunities. And you said, this is as low leverage as it gets. Your team is up 12 to, at this point, 5, or 12 to 4 at this point in the game after Garrett had given up a couple of runs. And all you have to do is get 3 outs with an 8-run lead, and it just has not worked for Ryan Helsley in any situation the Mets have put him in so far. And you can see how it trickles down. You mentioned it. There's just not a spot in any game where you want Helsley coming out of the bullpen, because high leverage, low leverage, he's continuing to give up these runs regardless of who the opponent is as well.
I mean, looking at it now, I have his Fangraphs numbers up, and I'm looking at what he did in St. Louis and what he's done here. He allowed 12 earned runs in 36 innings with St. Louis this year. He's allowed 8 earned runs, 12 runs in total in 7 1/3 innings for the Mets this year. Like, he's just been the complete opposite pitcher. And it wasn't like it was a stuff problem. He was up to 100. It wasn't like his diminished velocity was making it easy. He just doesn't have really great command of the off-speed stuff. And that feels like it's what dooms him. And then he tries to power through the fastball, and it's getting teed up. And I think it directly impacted the way Mendy, and we'll get to it when we talk about Sunday, but I think it directly impacted the usage of Gregory Soto and the way the latter stages of the game in the 2-2 tie was approached, because we didn't know it at the time, but Reed Garrett wasn't available because he was banged up. I don't think they trusted Ryan Helsley in a 2-2 game. We know Ryan Stanek is not to be trusted in those environments. You don't want to use Edwin Diaz that early. You used Tyler Rogers the day before. I'm kind of doing the thing before we get to Sunday's game, but you could see how it gets to the point where, we're going to go to Gregory Soto because, 1, he's the one guy we probably trust, and 2, he's the guy pitching the best out of all the options that we have. So just real tough stuff for the Mets right now, because if they don't have a guy they can turn to in the 8th, and right now I think it's Tyler Rogers would be the guy I would trust the most in the 8th, that's where they're at. And so you saw the seeds get planted for this on Friday. Saturday, it was 6 home runs, 4 stolen bases. It was Clay Holmes going 6 innings. I said 5 innings, 1 run was the ceiling for Clay Holmes. He said, not so fast, hold my beer. 6 innings, allowed the 2 earned runs.
I mean, Nolan McLean came out, pitched 7 innings. Clay Holmes said, hang on, I'm going to do a little bit better than I have. I'm getting pushed by a rookie right now. Let me see what I can do. The Mets are starting to see their starters get a little more length and depth into games. And to have the Peterson start at the beginning or in the Nats series, to have the McLean start to start this series, and then to have Holmes and then Peterson again going not quite 6, but into the 6th inning, that's going to be able to set you up much better going forward. And we saw how it affected how this game turned out, especially with the help of the offense.
Yeah, a bunch of stolen bases. Starling Marte had a great day, 3 for 3, played some great defense as well, playing left field for the first time since it's his first outfield assist in left field since 2017. Nearly 8 years for Marte out there. Stole some bases. The Mets had 4 stolen bases in total, and they hit 6 home runs. And the other big takeaway from this game, other than Clay Holmes and Starling Marte, was Swaggy V's back. He may be back.
I am ready to declare him back after this game, if that wasn't enough, the start to Sunday as well.
Yeah, I mean, responsible for the only 2 runs that the Mets scored, or 2 of the 3 runs the Mets scored on Sunday.
Right. I mean, every time I look at the lineup now, Chris, and I said this to you in July, I think before the David Wright game that we were both attending, the lineup looks so much deeper when Mark Vientos is on the way he has been, when I can rely on him to provide the kind of power that we expected coming into this season.
Well, everything's just in its proper place, right? Like when thinking about this team in spring, it was Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Vientos 1 through 4. That's the way it was drawn up on paper. And you're looking at that 4 and you're saying, well, Lindor, yeah, he's going to get off to this slow start, but he's going to finish strong. He's going to be an MVP candidate. You added Juan freaking Soto to your lineup. He's going to be great, and he's going to hit 25, 30 home runs, and he's going to get on base 40% of the time and just be awesome. Pete, we didn't know what Pete was going to be, but you know that any given year he could be a 30, 40 home run guy. And then Mark, you were expecting a huge jump from him after being just the leader of the team at points last year. And you're like, how is anybody going to beat that offense when those 4 guys are the top 4 every single night? It didn't work out that way, right? Alonso got off to a great start, but Soto didn't. Lindor got off to a great start, then had the toe injury that sent him back for 2 months. Vientos struggled for the first half plus of the year. It never really materialized the way that it was supposed to. But what you're seeing now, what you're seeing at least the glimpses of, and I don't even think it's all put together just yet because Pete's struggling. We'll talk about that here in a second because Sunday was bad for Pete.
Yeah.
You have Vientos, Soto, Lindor, all of those. I mean, Lindor is completely back from the toe. I mean, he's been just unreal in the month of August. It's starting to look like what it is supposed to, and I think where everybody gets a little nervous and gets a little unnervy is with it starting to look the way that it is supposed to. You hate to give away 2 games in Washington the way that you did. You hate to lose the finale of this series because you're just running out of time. You're running out of games. They have, 32 games left on the calendar, and you sent me a message before the show that if they're going to win 90 games this year, they have to go 21-11 the rest of the way.
Yep.
Like with the way they're currently playing, it doesn't feel like that's feasible. Also, not even taking into account that they've got 16 of 25 games in September against teams with winning records. They have 7 games against Philly. They have matchups with the Tigers on their schedule. Like, it's not an easy schedule. And, oh, by the way, they need to win 21 of those games in order to win 90 games.
Yeah. I mean, there's some irony here in the way things have started to turn out recently. Like, the pieces that are starting to come together are the offense, and at least of a sample size of, like, the last 2 series, the starting pitching outside of, ironically, again, Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea, has looked better in terms of giving you length and in terms of their performances on the mound. The offense looks great, like I said, but the piece of the team that you spent the most effort in building up at the trade deadline, the bullpen, has been the one that has struggled the most. And as the Mets are going down this difficult stretch of games, they have one of the hardest schedules in baseball going through the end of the season, and they have to win 2/3 of those games, like you said, to get to 90 wins. They're going to have to figure out how to get all 3 of those things working together and get the pitching, the starting pitching, the bullpen, and the offense all rolling at the same time.
This was not part of the pre-show prep that we did, but I want to get your thoughts on this because I'm kind of on the fence. Do you think this team needs to promote Tong and Sproat? Because it feels like with Holmes kind of turning a corner, Petey's been okay his last 2 starts, was excellent in Washington, was, I would say, okay, mostly good until the 6th inning on Sunday. Holmes has been good for 2 straight turns through. Do you feel the urgency in that regard that we maybe felt 2 or 3 weeks ago? Because I don't, and I know that Jonathan could be Bubba Chandler for Pittsburgh and come in and be a reliever, but it just doesn't feel like that's really what the Mets want to do. I think they will if they have no other choice, but the move to bring up Castillo for Garrett feels like they are going to try to turn over every other stone before doing that, and I just want your thoughts on whether or not you think they should call either of those guys up.
Yeah, so I think I'm with you. I don't think it's nearly as dire, especially seeing how Nolan McLean has performed so far through, again, a very small sample size, but getting that extra bump of every extra inning you can get out of your starting pitchers, especially when they're of the quality that he's been throwing, when you get the kind of outings that PD has had before this recent one was a little more shaky. And if Clay Holmes can continue to give more than 5 innings, even if it's not 6 every time, and still limit the runs that he's giving up, I'm not nearly as desperate for a savior, because look back 2 or 3 weeks prior to essentially Nolan McLean's debut, it was Frankie Montas giving up every run in history. It was Clay Holmes struggling. It was Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea not looking the same since making their returns just before the All-Star break. And all of a sudden, you had to start looking at how this team was going to put together enough innings from their starting pitchers to be able to make any kind of run down the stretch. And now, because of the recent length, I'm not looking as desperately towards that. And I think an extra factor there, Chris, is I looked at how Brandon Sproat played in his last outing with Syracuse. And they did the experiment going into the game. They said they're going to have Austin Warren be the opener and then have Nolan McLean, Brandon Sproat be the depth guy or the bulk guy for Syracuse. And it did not go well
at
work.
all. Did not work.
He threw 3 2/3 innings, gave up 7 runs, 5 of them earned on 7 hits. 2 walks and 4 strikeouts. That's the thing that we had been thinking that they might do. You mentioned Bubba Chandler with Pittsburgh. We had talked previously about what David Stearns had done with other star pitchers in Milwaukee. Having those guys come up and be bulk guys. What the Mets did with Blade Tidwell earlier this season. And if Brandon Sproat's struggling like this in that role, I don't feel comfortable having him do that. I don't know what Jonah Tong looks like. We haven't talked about it, but reports are coming out that the winds are blowing, that he might end up coming up before the end of this season to contribute. I don't know if they would feel comfortable having him do any of that bulk stuff when he's looked so good as a starter, and Sproat looking so good as a starter, having this big slip up when they try to shift his role in the pitching staff.
Yeah, it's a couple thoughts just to piggyback off of what you said. One, it's harder to do this now. Like, it was easier when Holmes was struggling because it was like, okay, move Holmes to the bullpen and put somebody in the rotation spot. We're now talking about the 2 rotation spots where we would insert either a Sproat or a Tong, being Sean Manaea and Kodai Senga. I just don't see a world where the Mets are demoting those guys from the rotation, right? Like, it just doesn't feel like when Montas was in there, okay, that made sense. When it was Holmes struggling, okay, there's a natural, easy transition here. Reed Garrett being on the injured list, like, that roster spot's now with Jose Castillo. So who knows if they're going to want to do that. So it's a little harder from a roster management perspective to do that, whereas a couple of weeks ago it certainly was much easier. But the other thing that I would add is for Tong, any of the reports that you read, and we love our guy TJ Stats, who puts together the player profile cards for all of these guys after they start. He put one recently up for Tong, and he mentioned something, and looking at the numbers, you can't help but agree. He relies on the fastball and the changeup right now. He's a 2-pitch pitcher. And I'm currently watching somebody start every 5th day for the New York Mets who's relying on 2 pitches, and it's not going very well. Sean Manaea has 2 pitches right now, and it's not working. He needs to get a 3rd pitch. His changeup, more involved. Whereas if you made Tong a reliever, those 2 pitches could play because guys are only seeing him once. He's going to face maybe 3 batters, and he'll take a couple days off before his next outing. So as a reliever, having 2 pitches makes sense. So if they wanted to use Tong in the Bubba Chandler role or in the myriad of examples that we could pick from Milwaukee with Woodruff and Burns, and Stearns has done this with a bunch of guys, Peralta. If you wanted to do that, then Tong makes sense because he has 2 really good pitchers that he could thrive in that role. But if you want Tong to be a starter, or if you're going to put somebody in the rotation, I feel like it's Sproat over Tong. So it really depends on what role the Mets are trying to fill. And that's why I think for the time being, they're going to try to patchwork this together with everybody else. But the bullpen does feel like it's a major concern right now because we'll use this to transition into Sunday's game. The Mets get out to an early lead. Mark Vientos hits a home run in 3 consecutive at-bats, the 2 previously on Saturday and then 1 on Sunday to give the Mets a 2-0 lead. Peterson, after kind of cruising through 5 innings, hit a bit of a wall in the 6th. And I was a little critical of Carlos Mendoza afterwards because I thought he could have gotten the bullpen up just a little bit sooner so that he didn't let Petey face Murphy in that spot. And I want to break this down for everybody the way that I did on the postcast that I did, because it's easy in hindsight to say, oh, just get the bullpen up early. But in the 5th, he struck out Murphy. He got Allen to pop out. Profar got an infield hit, and Olsen struck out. That was the way he ended the 5th. So no major trouble. So it wasn't like the ball was getting smacked all over the place, and Petey gave you any warning signs to get the bullpen up, right? And Petey's a guy who has been given a ton of leash this year. He had 8 innings of 1-run ball his last start out, so he's going to get a little bit more rope than anybody else in this staff. So then in the 6th, he gets Acuna to ground out, so he's got 1 out right away. He walks Ozuna. That's not a reason to get the bullpen going. Albies grounds into a fielder's choice. You've got 2 outs now. Petey's through 5 2/3. Again, there's no alarm bells to get the bullpen up. If you were going to get the bullpen up, perhaps you would have done it after Harris singled. But even then, he just got an out the previous at-bat. Even if you got them stirring, they're not going to be really ready. After Alvarez walks, now you have to have him face Murphy. I don't think there's enough time to get a bullpen arm. So, yeah, maybe he could have gotten the bullpen stirring a little bit sooner just in case, but there wasn't a major alarm bell going off that would have put him in that spot. Again, after the single, maybe you start to get the wheels turning a little bit, and then you can stall and have somebody face Murphy. But just with the way the game script worked, it's it's easier in hindsight to say, oh, he should have gotten the bullpen up. Whereas if you break it down, yeah, there's one small spot where he could have done it, but even then, there's no guarantee that he would have had a reliever ready to go for Murphy anyway.
The other thing you have to consider is, like, Murphy coming into this game was 1 for his last 38, I believe.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And then
I think it was 28. I think it was 1 for 28.
Maybe. He had like a long offer of like
Correct.
more than a dozen at-bats in his last dozen at-bats. And he's able to break that with the softest little bloop single over Francisco Lindor's head into left center field.
Thanks, Gary.
Right after Gary Cohen had mentioned the slump that he was in. And so even after the Harris single and the Alvarez walk, you think, okay, yeah, Sean Murphy's coming up and he historically is a good hitter, but this season, recently especially, he has not been that guy. The soft contact, you're not that worried about it. Earlier in the game, I also am hesitant to say that with that situation with the lineup and him being the 8th hitter, Nick Allen / Bruhan, I can't remember who was going to be up after that, or Eli White, whatever. That's the kind of situation where Petey has been able to get out of in the past without allowing any runs. Maybe he works himself into a little bit of trouble, but then once he gets to that bottom part of the lineup, his stuff is good enough, and he had been, to that point of the day, been good enough to get those outs, and he only needed, like you said, that one more because he got the first 2 so quickly.
Yeah, and so he gives up the hit to tie the game. And the real story in this game is the Mets took and I used this in the postcast, I'll use it again here, and I think I sent it to you as well. The Mets took the phrase respect your elders a little too seriously, a little too literally, because they gave Bryce Elder way too much respect. Chances in the 3rd and 4th inning to blow the game open when they were up 2-0, and they missed. And the guy at the center of it was Pete Alonso, DHing, and he struggled. He did not have a good day. He was 0 for 5 with a strikeout. He had an at-bat in the 9th inning with a chance to tie the game, did nothing with it. The Mets went 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. Pete was responsible for 3 of those at-bats. It was just not a good day for him. It was not a good day for the offense in general, who had chances in this game early against Elder, who the start before this gave up 8 earned runs. The start before that only gave up 2 earned runs against the Mets. So in between this was the recipe to beat Bryce Elder. The Mets just didn't follow it, and they couldn't break the game open. They opened the door for the Braves. Because of all of the things that we mentioned earlier, Helsley not giving you a lot of confidence to be trusted in high leverage, Garrett clearly unavailable, even though we didn't know it at the time, and I don't think any of us would have really wanted to see Garrett in that spot anyway. Rogers had pitched the night before, and while trusted, I just don't know if they want to run him into the ground. So Gregory Soto, somebody that I have campaigned for, this dude's been great since coming over here. Give him a high leverage spot. He's shown to you the medium and low leverage spots that you've given him. He's been great. He deserves a chance to go into the next bucket, to go up the ladder of the trust tree. He was given that spot, and the command issues that have plagued him throughout his career, especially in Baltimore, popped up. He got 3-0 on Alvarez, battled back to strike him out, but that should have been the warning sign. And he then he walked Murphy the next at bat, and then he had Bruhan 0-2, threw a ball and then hit him. That would have gotten him out of the inning.
Yeah,
and then
brutal.
Profar hits a single that Tyrone Taylor gets to. Tyrone Taylor gets to that ball. You can't convince me otherwise.
I can't remember what was the hit in the Nats series that I said the same thing about, where it was like a bloop to center field, and I think it ended up being an RBI, and Cedric Mullins ends up diving and coming up just short. This felt like a replica of that play with, I think, probably higher stakes, where there's a bloop single into center field. It is right at Cedric Mullins. Like, he is, as far as like positioning goes, he just had to make a dead sprint straight ahead and not able to get there, comes up short. It short hops his glove. He also misplays it, which I think, even if you say, I don't know if Tyrone Taylor catches that ball necessarily, even though he's a much faster runner at this point in both their careers, Tyrone Taylor, I think, at least holds it to 1 run scored there. Maybe it's a short hop, but I think his arm should have the reputation at this point that he would have made a strong throw to home plate. But Mullins not getting there and misplaying the ball lets 2 runs score, and that ends up being the difference because the Mets score 1 more run in this game in the 9th inning, and that could have tied it or been the go-ahead run if someone else were playing center field.
Doing a quick search through the series, could it have been the Jacob Young hit in the 6th inning that gave the Nets the 5-3 lead?
It would have had to be. Because that was as Sean Manaea, I think, was starting to struggle.
Sean Manaea was in that game, yes. Sorry, did I say Jacob Young? I said Jacob Young, right?
You said Jacob Young.
Okay, so yeah, Jacob Young for the Nationals.
Yeah.
That is an RBI hit that was to center field, so that's what I was looking for when scrolling through the box score very quickly.
And, I mean, MLB Network did a deeper dive on it earlier today, and I sent you this tweet.
It's so painful. Seeing the graphic, it's like, why do they continue to put him in left field? Like, why is Tyrone Taylor not playing center?
Apparently, Cedric Mullins has said he doesn't feel comfortable playing the corner outfield spots. I do not care.
Right, I don't care, Cedric. I don't care. Figure it out.
Because their 2025 statistics of center fielders, Tyrone Taylor's fielding run value is 8. Cedric Mullins is -2. That is a 10-point swing there. But that's not that at all, folks. Tyrone Taylor's defensive run saved is also an 8. Cedric Mullins, -17. It's a 25-point swing for the worst that you're getting when you start Cedric Mullins in center field rather than Tyrone Taylor.
I know that Tyrone had a good day with the bat the other day. But mostly, we can all agree here amongst friends, Tyrone Taylor's skill set to this team is defense and center field.
Yes.
If you are going to put Tyrone Taylor in the game, I had this rant a couple weeks ago about them not using him as a pinch runner for Starling Marte, right? Like, what is he on the team for if you're not going to utilize him in the key important spots? Tyrone Taylor is going into the game for defense. He needs to go in 8 in your scorecard, okay? That's where he needs to go. It is beyond ridiculous that Tyrone Taylor's defensive abilities on this team are just being stuck in the corner because, Cedric Mullins is uncomfortable and we're just going to continue to let base hits fall that Tyrone Taylor gets to. Like, I have not felt this confident about a center fielder getting to every ball hit in his direction since Juan Lagares was here. Like, Tyrone Taylor gets to everything. He did it earlier in the series, the night before. Clay Holmes was getting hit hard a little bit. Lindor made the great play. And Tyrone Taylor makes a diving catch to get Holmes out of a jam.
Yep. I also just didn't understand the managing situation with Tyrone Taylor in this finale because he goes in as a pinch runner for Mark Vientos, I believe in like the 7th inning, and then that pushes Mark Vientos off of first base because he was starting there instead of Pete.
Okay, so can we stop right there? So I'm sitting there, and they use Taylor as a pinch runner, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, who's playing first? Like, I was like, there's clearly I'm like, all right, there's a plan here. And then, like, I was pacing around the room at that point because the Mets were not coming back in the game, and they were missing their chance for a sweep. And I was like, wait a minute. Even if there is a plan, I don't know if it's a good plan. Like, I was thinking about the options, and I'm like, who's going to play first base? And then, like, as I was thinking that, Gary was like, hey, guys, I got a question for you. Who's playing first base? And I'm like, yeah, Gary, like, I've got that same question.
Great question.
And I think Keith was like, yeah, McNeil. Like, so nonchalant. Like, of course that's the option. When he's made one other appearance there. Sure enough. Sure enough. That's what happened. Jeff McNeil went to play first base, and I texted you. And I'm like, please do not allow a play to Jeff McNeil at first base be the reason why the Mets lose this game. Fortunately, that was not the reason why. It was Gregory Soto struggling there in the 8th.
But also Tyrone Taylor playing left field when he comes into the field to start the next inning.
I like Carlos Mendoza a lot, but there have been some bad decisions over the last month or so.
I just did not understand the decision to pinch run when they did it, having him not steal a skill set that you would expect the Mets to take advantage of, given how good they have been this season at stealing bases, particularly Tyrone Taylor being probably the fastest runner on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And then having him go out and play left field and scrambling your lineup in a weird way so you can save the DH, Pete Alonso, who, by the way, has been struggling this whole time anyway. So that was baffling to me. And then to have that play fall right in front of Cedric Mullins, and I just know Tyrone Taylor is watching that play from 15 feet over going, man, I could have made that play.
Yeah, it was tough. And again, if Tyrone Taylor is going to play, he needs to be in center field. I just think it's a non-negotiable. I would rather have Cedric Mullins struggle in the corner and be Giancarlo Stanton out there in left field than not have your best defensive center fielder in the game at center field.
I mean, this is just the thing with the Cedric Mullins trade. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me that they're getting a guy who is, in theory, defense first.
You don't have to tell me this.
And his offense has not been good since he's come to the Mets. He had that good game to start this series, but, I mean, the defense isn't there. The offense hasn't been there. I don't know what exactly he's really bringing.
I believe my criticism of the move was, boy, I don't know what this does to your roster and your ability to play everybody that you need to play where you need to play them. I believe that was my direct response to the trade when it happened. Like, I'm not sure about this. Now the Mets start a 3-game series at home against the Philadelphia Phillies, also known as the Harrison Bader Revenge Series. So just prepare yourself accordingly for that, because that's going to be fun.
His second chance this season after the Mets played the Twins earlier this year.
Yeah,
he did quite well, if I recall correctly.
So he'll probably rip the Mets' hearts out in a big way. It starts tonight. Kodai Senga going on regular rest. Doesn't do that very often. Is doing it tonight against Christopher Sanchez. It is Sean Manaea against Jesus Luzardo in the second game of this series. And then it is Nolan McLean against Taijuan Walker in the finale. That's the one you circle and get excited about. And you're just thinking to yourself, hey, win one of these next two. And then you get McLean on Wednesday, and you have a chance to take 2 out of 3 from Philly. Lineup for this game tonight. We don't normally do lineup breakdowns here, but the lineup is out, and I found it interesting. Taylor's in there in center. No Beatty because they're facing a lefty. I think that's foolish. I think that's a mistake. But this is the perils of the way this roster is constructed. They want to get McNeil's bat in there. He's playing second. Nimmo's back in left.
You have to have Mark Vientos play somewhere in the lineup. You have to have Starling Marte play, honestly, because of the way he's been swinging the bat.
Somebody's got to be left out, and so the tiebreaker is, there's a lefty on the mound. We'll sit the lefty and Brett Beatty. So that's the way it broke down. I think that's, again, I would try to find ways to get Brett Beatty in the lineup, but that's got to be what the reason was. Everybody's hitting well. What's the tiebreaker? Well, if Marte's playing DH, if Vientos is playing third, and Nimmo's back in the lineup, and they have Taylor's bat in there, which, again, you got Cedric Mullins because he's hitting better against left-handed pitching, and then Tyrone Taylor's, it continues to not make any sense. Continues to be...
Hey, maybe Tyrone Taylor will have a game-saving catch in this game, and we'll be happy that he's in there.
Eagerly awaiting the catch that Taylor makes in this game tonight, and then the little notification on my messages on Twitter to just say 1, and I won't even need to click on it. I'll know exactly what it's going to say. I don't think this is a must sweep. I know there are some out there that think that if the Mets want to get back in the NL East, they have to sweep this series. Can you take 2 out of 3 and look competitive? You're at home. Just take care of business. Win the series. Make me feel good. I think at this point, catching the Phillies and doing a reverse 2007 is not going to happen. Just play good baseball. Keep the Reds at a distance. Focus on getting into the postseason as a wild card. Again, will it be ideal for them to be in the wild card again and go on the road? No, it won't. But you know what? They've done it before. Get in the dance. This team, this franchise, doesn't go to playoffs in back-to-back years very often, so let's not get too greedy now just because we got Uncle Steve and all the money that's being spent. Task at hand, get in the postseason, keep checking the scoreboard for the Reds, and just take care of business. So look competitive, take 2 out of 3, and let the chips fall where they may when you play Philly again for 4 games later on in the year.
Yeah, I'm with you there. People are going to look at the Mets' remaining schedule, and they're going to look at the fact that the Phillies have a 7-game lead, and they'll go, oh, the Mets have 7 more games against the Phillies. If they win all 7 of those, they'd be tied for the NL East lead. I don't think, given the difficulty of the Mets' schedule going forward, they should just focus on what they can control right now, which is winning a series. The last time they played the Phillies at home, they swept. I don't necessarily expect that this time, but you still got other hard series against the Tigers, the Reds, the Cubs. Let's just focus on one series at a time, please, and one game at a time within those series.
Yep, exactly. Just take it one step at a time here with 32 games to go on the calendar. That's going to do it for us here on this edition of the Bleav in Mets pod. If you want to watch the show, just search us up on YouTube, Jack McKessie, McKessy. You can catch the video version of the show. We had some video elements in the show today, so if you want to see those things, not a ton, but just a couple. So if you want to check those out, just watch the video version of the show. If you're listening to us in the podcast feed, please rate, review, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. Share the show with a friend. That is the best thing you can do to help us out, and we would greatly appreciate that. We are back. No days off right now for the New York Mets, so we're going to sneak in an episode on Thursday for you ahead of a 4-game series with Miami. We'll recap everything that happened between Philly. Hopefully, some good things. Hopefully, it's not a depressing, disappointing episode of the pod. Those have been all too common here for us as of late, but we will be back to break it all down no matter what happens, and we'll talk to you guys then. And as always, let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.